You want me to just hold one?
Yes. I am really sorry. I didn't hold up my end of the deal. I promised you I was going to kill that fly, and I didn't do it. I am sorry to have let you down. I'll get on it. Kill that fly, come on, make yourself useful. All right, we are gonna make a stream. It's your chance to ask all your questions to the lovely folks from Rewa who have come to hang out and do some board repair. So we're jumping right in. We've already busted out the oscilloscope. We've already changed a crystal on a dead iPhone 7 Plus, and now we've gone for the big guns. I reached deep into the vaults and I found a very important iPhone 6 that has been in my drawer for 2 years. Why? Because it is for a celebrity. This is a VIP iPhone 6, and I'm not going to tell you who it's for until we get it fixed. So this one has really been around the block, and it's been in the drawer for 2 years. It had a 128 SD RAM short that was under the SD RAM. And as I'm sitting here looking at this, let's see if we can click over and see our microscope cam. Let's promote this microscope cam here. Let's see. Look at this. This is already off. All right. So, okay. Do you think, as you look at this, that it looks damaged from prior repair? He says, maybe so, maybe not, only time will tell. And then he said, I thought you were going to kill that fly. All right. This is, somebody's been here before. So does that green oil, the UV green, look okay?
One pad is missing.
We can't see that. Push it up a little bit.
You see?
Yes. Should we look it up or say? Yeah. Should we look that up? Have you memorized every single one of these CPU pads? No? All right, let's click over and see if we can get our chat and see. I bet everybody's excited to be able and talk with Rewa peeps. So let's see, how do we split this out? Is that gonna let us pop up chat? No, it's just gonna be block that dude. All right.
I've got another camera if we have the micro HDMI.
We do, exactly. All right. All right. Hi from Chile. Yeah, that's your neighbor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's your neighbor. All right. It's also Practical Board Repair School Course Week, and let's see. Rewa, Rewa, hurrah! All right.
Nice.
Our friends.
Why 2 years? It was waiting for a special day, and I forgot about it.
What is Rewa?
What is Rewa? Yeah, answer, Rewa. Like, don't you know?
Don't you know?
She said, let me Google that for you. All right, now we're getting the big guns out. Okay, so already, just to FYI, we've had to swap out the inferior JVC, boo, in favor of the Quick, which you can see here we are at the Quick, and now we are swapping out the inferior ZXW in favor of pads. right? That's what you guys are using, pads, to look this up?
Yeah, pads.
As a viewer.
That's right. And by the way, this is all impromptu. So when you woke up this morning, did you think that you were going to have to be doing a CPU transfer on an iPhone 6 in front of like the whole world?
他说你今天早晨醒来的时候没有想到下午要在全世界的面前做一个那个 CPU 的翻版吧？
是的，太突然了。
Just another day for
It's
doing
amazing.
We're surprised.
Big surprise.
Big surprise. So you guys just went to the Mobile World Congress, is that what it's called? In LA?
yeah.
Yes, and there was somebody standing outside with a giant box of repairs,
Yes, and he came
To
every
do-
day.
and he came every day.
Yes, every day, all days, daily.
And at one point threw down several $100 bills on the booth and said, "Let's do this."
Let's do
yes,
this.
Yes, but we still
Kind of
Stuck
like,
to our guns.
like
Yeah.
being a stripper,
Yes,
a little bit.
it was.
Just sort
It
of
was,
like, but
yeah.
instead of ones, it was $100 bills,
That's right.
and it was about fixing boards.
Yes.
Well, what kind of problems did those boards have? Like really signature stuff, like audio IC and things like that, or was it, broken in half boards?
那个展会上那个中德给那个人修的是一些什么问题？
Some problems is the touch problem and the signal problem both, I think.
Okay.
Fixed several both.
Okay, sitting there being a touch IC guru. All right, let's see. For anyone not familiar with them, check out rewatechnology.com. But replace dot with a real dot. Thanks. Alrighty. So when are you guys going to do live streams? Oh wait, I know what's going to help out with this repair. You guys need the music.
We do much better with that.
Yeah, I think we should play it.
We want music, yeah.
Yeah, come on, get it up on your phone. Let's go, right? Oh, all right.
Oh, the Rewa music.
Yeah, the Rewa music. It's like, yeah. All right, now we're cooking with this. All right, I see. All right, what are we? So I'm gonna guess. So we've been doing a lot of this sort of informal translation. So we're looking up what is the consequence? Okay, now we're getting into it.
Now you can do it, man.
All right, done.
So we're looking up the consequence of the missing pad. So this is a prior repair attempt. So it really, couldn't be any more challenging. What the heck is that
Just
laughter?
click on the live view.
To look up the consequence of the fact that this CPU is missing a pad there, and maybe some on the bottom, I couldn't tell. All right, so we got pads out. Let's see if we can look up, students, on the yield ZXW. Why do you guys not like ZXW?
It's inferior.
但是给弄了一点buff，那个缺那个角。
That pad is SD-RAM 1.8.
Of course it is. All right, do you need me to call in Mark Schaefer to make a jumper on the die of the chip right there? I think it's a good idea.
可以飞线到那
Yeah,
个角。
come on, Mark. Mark's a whiz. He's totally got this. He's super awesome.
这个角跟其他的一点buff是连在一起的。
All right, so it's one of these guys?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, what do you think would happen if we said, screw that, it's got plenty, it's got enough of just use some of the other ones. You think they're all connected? Could we use the multimeter to beep, beep, beep?
可以尝试一下，直接这样子做上去。
Do you think somebody took it off on purpose because maybe it was short in the chip?
是有人那个刻意把它拿走
者是拆芯片的时候，那个拼条就掉了。
When you remove, maybe that pad is missing. We don't know if it's.
Fail out.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't just say the raw cause.
All right, let's zoom in. Let's see what is up. And then we'll make a plan about it. Here's my vote. My vote is that we should say, forget about it, move on, leave it off, because these guys in China drill out chunks of the SD-RAM anyway. So 1V8 SD-RAM not going to one part of the CPU is it might be not a big deal. I think we should just continue on and say forget about that. What do you think, Mark?
I think there's probably going to be continuity on all the other points, and that 1.8 is going to get everywhere it's supposed to.
Yeah, we think. What do you think? Okay to just say forget it?
It is okay, he said, because it's connected with the others.
Yes.
Also, it's shared.
All right, so we're all agreed. What do you guys think? Since you're almost, you got 3 days under your belt.
画稀的，然后
Good to go.
So you think good to go? All right.
Good to go.
Okay.
We need a knife to remove the.
All right. Okay. Let's go on. Okay. So we have some things that I don't use a lot. Let's see. We have this guy with all of these friends that you can play with, like one of these guys, something like that, like that guy. You know him? All right, he's your buddy. Mark, get him one of your like scalpels that's like what we would use for the same job, and see what he wants to do. Alrighty. And let's see what kind of stuff. Jessa, don't forget, I asked for the good stuff. Let's see. Agent 47 can't understand why somebody that lives in China doesn't speak other languages other than the one they speak around town.
We focus on the technology.
Because you focus on the technology. All right.
How come you can't speak Chinese?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
like-
Agent 47. Boom.
Chinese, huh?
All right. Let's see. How's Martin doing? Is he behaving?
A little bit, yeah.
Gee, I wonder who that is.
I'm trying to.
Martin had to solve the sex toy mini today. How did it go?
Awesome.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
You guys were on the faster side compared to a lot of groups, right?
Well, we got stuck a little bit.
Before we use the solder paste, we have to
Don't
make
say
it
that
dry.
on camera.
Okay, yes. All right, let's
Yes.
cover important content. Before you use the solder paste, you have to make it dry. So you can stick it in a McDonald's napkin. Oh, wow. You can stick it in a professional Kleenex all the way from China.
这是好专业。
Wait, he's drying the chip.
He's drying the paste.
Yeah, he's getting
The paste itself, the solder paste,
Yes.
is going to be too juicy. Because what happens to flux when you add heat?
Bubbles.
Right. And so what's going to happen if you use a stencil with flux in it?
Oh,
The
bubble.
little balls are going to jump out or bridge together. So he's going to make it dry.
Solder's gonna pop.
So he's dried it off, and it looks like a big loogie. Look, right there.
Do you have another, Jason?
What kind of other tip? All right, let's find him a J tip. Mark!
Poor Mark, he's like just running back and forth.
Mark, get him a J tip. I think I've seen a lot of J tips on these videos.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, hold up. We got it. We'll hook you up. All right, all right, here comes Mark with a bunch of tips.
Can you switch to the microscope?
Is that
Hmm?
okay?
Yes, let's switch to the microscope.
所以也就用这个。
All right, so this is just the chip itself sitting on. Here's one of these. You like this? Just lay them. little 90
okay.
looking one.
It's okay. This one.
Put it right there.
It's okay. The surface.
All right, so this is in real time with no sped up music. This is the FM 2027 regular iron, holding down the chip with a red pair of Smart Fun tweezers, available at iPad Rehab Supply, and breathing in a little bit of flux just for atmosphere. Q-tips are in the backpack.
This
Yep.
PCB cleaner or alcohol.
Alcohol.
酒精这些。
All right, so this is a prior repair attempt. So this has already been reballed once, so we're gonna reball by Rewa. I like it. Reball by Rewa.
Normally we use a special liquid. We call it PCB cleaner to clean the surface.
All right, so normally they use acetone, which is probably around here if we go on a hunt in things that I don't use very much, which get pushed to the back, and then they fall off my desk. But maybe way back there.
Is acetone a little better for cleaning than actual alcohol, or?
A little bit better.
Oh, okay. But
Our
better in this
experience.
case. Okay.
No, he didn't say acetone. I'm assuming that that's what they mean.
Okay.
I use acetone.
Oh, okay.
I like it. because
Mark,
it
isn't there acetone
Oh,
back,
okay.
like, there it is, behind that monitor. Yeah. Like that? Smell it. See if it smells like home.
Yeah, clean your hands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Waft.
Waft.
Same? Different?
Not that stuff.
Not that? Okay.
Alright. Note to Mark, look up PCB cleaner.
Oh, PCB cleaner?
Yeah. Is it gonna be like mech? Methyl ethyl ketone?
Can I buy that on the Rewa store?
Yes.
No.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult to transport. We made ship out with this much, and you receive it this much.
Mm.
Oh.
But it's
Oh.
not too bad.
Makes sense.
For-
Evaporation.
Yes, for the conference we brought also 2 bottles,
Mm.
and they go.
What did I do? Yikes. Should I go back? Let's see. Where's the Rewa music? We had some Rewa music earlier. All right, there we go. Now we can pop out chat, and at the same time we can see what is where's the Rewa music? What does Rewa mean? Says Agent 47, who, by the way, objects to people that live in other countries and still refuse to speak.
Rewa, the Chinese name is Rewa. Re means sounds very good, rich, and helpful, and Hua is China. So we want to be a company.
Helpful China.
Yes.
Aww.
Oh, that's awesome.
I
Yes,
think
that's
I think it's from the French language. Riva, viva.
Okay. Riva.
The pronunciation Rewa is very close to the Chinese name Rewa.
Okay. Alrighty, very cool. Alright, so let's see what's going on now. This looks like the other side.
SD-RAM.
I think this is just the other side of the CPU.
Oh,
Yeah, it's top side of the CPU.
So how would you normally get off the stuff that's on there? A knife?
You mean you remove the original solder paste? We use the
Well,
solder iron?
so if this was native, like just taken off, the balls there are sitting in a substrate that's it's not the same as underfill that's everywhere else. What would you just? It's almost a rubbery like stuff.
Silicone.
Yeah, it's some kind of stuff, and so when you're trying to do CPU jobs, it's always a little unclear. How much of that do I need to get off? Do I just leave it and make my new balls on top of that stuff? Or do I try to pick it off?
就是这个周边的细点，是需要把它全部清掉的。
对，把它清掉，重新再涂过细钢。
怎么清这个刀呢？
用那个烙铁粘美工刀。
Use the knife and the soldering iron to clean the original balls.
So
remove it and then put a new one.
And you're curious how just that first time that we're cleaning that material off the balls.
hey Mark, go take off a CPU so we can see what we're talking about. All right, so this is one of the standard IC remover tools with the Bob Ross blade, and we're getting some of the solder paste that still looks a little bit liquidier than normal, and smashing it all over the top side of the CPU. Very Bob Ross. Bob Ross is the painter, the funny painter guy who paints with a thing just like that, and he says happy little trees, and he's got the big hair. Everybody loves Bob Ross.
Happy little fox.
Yes, a happy little fox.
Happy
Accidents.
Yeah.
Yes. This whole little job is a very happy accident, especially if it works out. And then I can tell you guys who the famous celebrity is.
It's not Bob Ross. I thought that was it.
It's yeah. And then bad news, he's dead.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, sorry.
Late on this program.
Close.
All right. Now, do you like some special Q-tips that don't leave fuzzies?
Actually, I asked for like this material. Do you have something for that?
I have. I have it right there, like a makeup thing. Stick your finger.
This
That,
one?
yeah, that. Touch it. It's for eyeshadow. I'm sure you have a few in your pocket probably already. All right, so this is interesting. So paste on the chip, no stencil, Bob Ross paintbrush, now eyeshadow applicator to wipe off. All right, so for you, on a scale of 1 to 10, right now, since you're using somebody else's stuff and other equipment, do you feel like, oh, this is normal, it's probably going to be okay? Or do you feel like, no, we should turn the cameras off?
This is the first time for June for the video shoot.
Right, yeah.
还好吧，可能是一个新的环境，可能会要适应一下。
He says it's fine, it's okay, just a new environment, the thing a bit time to get used to.
Okay.
Just keep rolling.
You're a good sport. When you guys get back to China, is Rewa going to be busting out with live streams all the time? Live streams are so much less work. Alright, let's get back on here. Alright, so this is the quick at 340 and maybe 50 or 60% air. So that's low, 340. This is using the regular old 6337 leaded solder paste after having been dried out. Hey Mark, you should watch. I mean, surely you have that CPU off by now. So I always thought that it was silly, and where's the fly swatter? That, you know, when we interact with Chinese suppliers, that Chinese suppliers in general make up an American name, which that's not your name. Your name's not Maggie, and you know, and I always would say, what does your mother call you? But yeah, now I can kind of understand. It is, you know, too hard for us to. So bad.
It's really.
Shame. It's our problem. We're terrible people.
Yeah.
We have flies. We make you go on YouTube. I am very sorry for the sad disgrace of our country. I hope you can bear with us. All right, here comes Mark.
So he got the CPU flush with the die, the CPU, you know, all the underfill flush with the die, and then he just put paste in all the holes in that underfill that was left, that kind of fills the gap between the PCB of the CPU and the die. So
Got a bit communication problem.
Let's just come back to that. Let's you can come and watch, Mark. All right, so how do you feel about this stencil? Is this stencil okay, or is it a piece of crap?
It's not as good as the 3D one.
What about the 3D one? This is A8. You want what about this one? What about this?
Very good.
All right, that's the iPad Rehab supply stencil. Yay!
Regarding some names, how do you think the Chinese people who choose name as apple, cherry?
Oh, apple or cherry. You know, I want to get a Chinese name. What's close to Jessa? So I think you should go with
We have that Chinese name, Jessie.
Jesse is a Chinese name? Yes!
Yeah,
This is so great. All right. Now I want to know how to write it. All right. Okay, let's see. Give him a tweezer and sit him down under the microscope so he can feel it, and then he'll know what you're talking about. All right. We need a fly swatter. Come on, you guys. Like, I'll be so impressed.
Together, yes.
Yeah.
That's flying there.
We can Mr. Miyagi.
But we have to have chopsticks.
Okay. Well,
Any hot tweezers?
yeah. Come on.
Research, yeah.
So we had no air conditioning yesterday, so we had to open the doors,
it's like that,
and now
right?
we have flies.
But he
Oh my God.
left some of
No.
I was always on
So it's
camera
like-
too. That was
Yes.
impressive.
If it lands on one of you guys, I'm probably gonna say.
No, don't stop.
If it lands on me, by all means, just, you know. Right, exactly, it's worth it.
Anyone would do it. Yeah. Anyone would.
All right, we're not paying attention. Okay, so this is the 3D stencil for the A8. This is the iPhone 6. And we're back to the Bob Ross knife with the kinda dried out paste. Do you feel like this paste is
So
perfect
what
or
I've seen
too
in the
wet?
videos is a lot of people just go with the top of this edge and
现在这个就刚刚好。
anything that's higher than this
It's just
and just make everything
Okay,
as level as
perfect.
this.
All right, good.
And then go around.
So you're doing a lot more.
The pads are down.
You're spending a lot of time, like really working it into the stencil, compared to when I just smear it on and say good enough. All right, now we're back to the eyeshadow applicator to wipe it off.
The step is again perfection.
Right. That's what I wanted to understand. He's
I'm
not,
going to stab myself in
He's
the
not
eye.
having to worry about this gap because he's leaving.
Oh,
some
by
of
the way,
black
it's
and
6:54, so
filling
you guys,
back up
you know,
to the
don't
top
wanna
of
hang
the
out.
CPU so that the
Don't
new
feel
one
like
can
you're
sit
jailed here.
on top without-
It's like, I don't care about any of this. I need to know who this is.
Hotel will be there.
All right, so this is
Yeah,
the
it sounds
same, you know, this is the same 340, 51%.
340, 51.
Yeah, and if we had another camera, you'd see the, you know, standard bent nozzle and the quick, very, very, very close to the stencil itself. Not up high above. Air is not bouncing off. The tip is almost touching the stencil. Look, Mark. Mark, did you see that when he did the top side of the CPU, he didn't use a stencil at all? It was just.
Well, that's what I was just trying to go over with Sky to make sure I understood. And I have one where I've picked everything away down to the
Yes.
PCB,
Mhm.
and then one where CPU has just been
Right.
freshly pulled off, so we can ask and show.
Okay,
This
yes.
is no.
Yes,
right?
all right. So don't worry about that giant ball. Just knock that off and nobody will ever know because it's out of the frame. Now I'm really messing with things. Now we've messed with the camera too many times. All right, I gotta edit while this is cooling down, so that's a real big challenge for me. Everyone loves when someone comes and messes with their microscope when they're in the middle of a BGA job. I'm very sorry about the poor working conditions. That's not in focus anymore, sorry. At all. He said.
Yeah, I was distracted.
That's
You know, we have some in the middle. We could get him the 0.75 Barlow ones. And that would be. These are all 0.5.
This one's 0.75. Very organized.
One little ball went out to play. So did you guys drag a microscope and soldering station to California? Did it make it? And I did that one time with a straight nozzle for the Hako, and when I got there, it was a bent nozzle.
Hey, upgrade.
From China to LA, and then we picked up there. And after the show, so many people came and want to buy the whole stuff. By the end of the show, we sold it. So
They-
don't need to carry
That's a
it
good
back.
idea.
They
Yeah.
probably
that
pack
is
their
a
stuff
good
really well too, and not just throw it all into a bag.
I don't know if this is how you guys packed, but when I had to I went to iFixit to do videos, and I took my whole station, so I packed hot air.
花的太多了，失败了。
Okay.
They said that they took too much of that away, so we can
对对对
they
对。
redo it, do it again.
Yeah, he said unacceptable. Now, how many times can you reball a chip before? Let's say you never tear up the mask. How many times could you heat up and reball, heat up and reball, heat up and reball a CPU?
一般的就用低温吸的话，可以做10次。
Up to 20 times.
Wow.
Using low temperature, so it's
Okay. Lower than this or this? Is this what you would use?
这个温度要低。
这个就可以。
也就比这个温度还要低。
Lower than this.
Yeah, lower than this.
We have some stuff from China over there. Here.
Back anymore.
No. It's this stuff.
Do you have something harder to remove that? Harder. For now, what they is using to remove it, it's a little bit too soft. They need something a little bit harder.
That's what she said.
Scratch the soda paste.
American culture.
Okay. Mark,
Yeah.
we need a tool consult. What is harder? Here's a different paste. Do you know this paste? Is it like seen something before? He's like, yeah. Is this the good stuff? I did notice when I tried to follow the, to try to do the iPhone 10, putting together the two split boards using the Rewa thingy that I lost. The video.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, this thing. This thing, you know this thing? Yeah. So this thing, you know, in the video, use the temperature to solder it back together, 150, which is very low. Right? I think you have to have something very low melt like this. That most people in the US don't have this, or they're unaware of this. So that, like, on that video, you know, make that clear. You know, you have to use this paste, or the stuff that's conventional, the 6337, which you recognize, the mechanics brand, whatever that stuff is. Where is it? The stuff we've been using. You know, what temperature would this go at? You know, would this machine be set to use that? Those are the kinds of questions that I think that people have that, you know, be easy to clear up with some, you know, hey bro, thanks.
We need to put it more clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what would they need? Over 200?
I don't know, man. Good.
200 something.
Probably not. Probably something like about 200.
Yeah, because when we were looking at the temperature, it was like 183.
183. Right.
So you need
Yeah.
somewhere right around
A little bit
200.
get up there. Did you
Yeah,
feel
we
the
find the
Did
fly
you
swatter.
Did you feel the fly?
He's like, you darn fly.
Do we get harder one or?
Alright, he needs something harder to you know, the
Straight.
Bob Ross knife is too
Too soft.
Oh,
He wants something hotter,
let's see. Let's
stronger
go on
than
a hunt.
the
Oh,
Bob.
Let's go on a hunt. Here we go. Here's a bunch of stuff that I never use. I bet maybe there's something in here. Is this the rosin stuff that you guys talk about?
Yes, maybe.
Yes! Oh my god! It's been like 2 feet behind me for who knows how long?
Sorry, will this work?
这个可以。
Touch.
Hmm?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Is that what you use for short detection?
宽一点的。
是那个是这样的。
This can we have a white?
That's the current section.
I'll look.
Okay, thank you.
It melts it. It melts it.
它要是没有这个。
There used to be.
Sure. Can you just use another one of the?
Yeah, what about like something like, can we just go like, is this something that you could kind of make a tool out of? So you really need a special kind of putty knife.
Thank you. It was very enough. Thank you very much. Oh.
That looks legit, Mark. What is that?
What?
That thing,
That look? The triangle?
Yeah.
That's like an opening tool. It's one of the things Union Repair sent. Just, hey, check this out.
Oh, let's watch. So Mark, normally that long camera stands there. If we could get the other little camera, there's going to be there's going to be under here, maybe over there, another connector, and then it would automatically be something we could switch over to, which would be good to be able to kind of like see over here.
Is it this really long table?
This is the power. So he's putting the air offset and not directly on the balls, almost to heat up the metal so that the transfer of the heat across the metal is what's making the paste turn into balls. Okay, so this is held down gently on top of one of these McDonald's napkins with the chip under it, stencil on top. It's a 3D stencil. No additional flux. Here comes the soldering iron to tame the bad guys. The mini hot tweezers is tinier iron if you need a tinier iron. Alright, so this is light pressure with wide tweezers on either side of the chip. Sneaking up on it with hot air from pretty high above, 340 to 50% airflow, so that's lower airflow than normal and lower temperature.
Okay, this is just put in.
Okay, great. And then let's see if we do this. And then let's promote this. There you go, Mark, that's you. There is a setting if you know, it's fine the way it is for now. That was weird. It's like there's a chroma filter. It's seeing isn't that wild? It's seeing the edge of the mat as green, and then you can see the microscope image below it. That's pretty wild. Alright, let's do this. Let's just kind of So, normal or giving you a hard time? What do you say?
那你觉得这个是很难，还是说这就是一般的正常的，就是这样？
是的，这个换 CPU 是在维修当中是一个最难的了。
Exchange the CPU is the hardest part in the repair business.
He says exchanging the CPU is the hardest part in the repair business.
I'll agree with that.
How often? I think it's unnecessarily hard because it's low yield. What percent of the time that you decide I'm going to replace the CPU? What percent of the time does that solve the problem?
就是如果你10个问题100个里面有多少个你是愿意去修那个 CPU 的，然后修的里面如果有10个或者100个里面有多少是你修，就是你有多少是愿意修的，是不是？
一般的话，根据客户的需求，如果客户愿意出得起价格的话，就愿意给他做 CPU。
然后那个维修的成功率呢？
维修的成功率，假如用打磨机直接打磨的话，成功率可以做到80%-90%。
He says it depends on the customer demand. If customer can pay the price, he can do that. We can do that. And if you use the machine to do it, it can be up to 80%, 90% can be fixed. The CPU.
In our experience, by the time a board needed the CPU moved, the CPU was often dead, electrically killed. So that's kind of my question, is how often do you transfer the CPU only to find out that the CPU itself is already dead because of whatever happened to the phone to begin with?
How much time does it take you?
CPU 它自己本身故障的概率。
做的不顺手，他说这里做的不顺手。
For the numbers you ask was the same as previous question. Ask about how many pieces you repair for like 7 and 6 for CPU motherboard. Because they are from our technical department, usually they don't do the data connection of the elements. Don't know how much to do actually. So it's difficult to answer.
Okay, so you're saying, we don't know because we don't try to take CPUs off of A and put them on B because that's a data recovery job, which is something an individual does, and we work on big boxes of industrial stuff, not individuals, so we don't do it a lot.
For data recovery, we already we start to offer to individual customers because the demand is increasing. And he just mentioned we don't know how many pieces he did. Like last year, we asked him how many motherboard replacement he did. We can't give a number because we don't do the statistical.
So Mark, what's your experience with CPU stuff?
It's very easy to warp SDRAM. If you remove all of the underfill that's between CPU and SDRAM, then the SDRAM
It's too gappy.
will not all reach. Yeah, you'll have gaps. And it's very, very, very difficult. I had better luck reballing using balls, even though it's really time consuming, than doing paste. And I feel better about how hard I found it with paste now, watching.
So it's like a lot of things where it all comes down to the folks that are good at microsoldering are compelled to sit here and still think it's fun after stuff hasn't worked for 3 or 4 times, and you're thinking, well, let me try one more thing. Let me just try, well, we could do this, let me just do one more thing, because it still has this hobby and fun aspect to it. Otherwise, stick to the signature failures. Alright, so we're doing a lot of, we're trying out different stencils from the pile of potential stencils.
先试一下。直播没办法。
Exploring because it's about our name, and he's using a different tools.
Right, yeah, so he's whispering, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up. Gotcha. And then he says, no pressure.
We will try again, and later, possible, we can make a video show.
Oh, I know. You're going to
the-
take this board home with you. Yes! Yes! Oh, yes. I know. And then you're going to have some music.
Maybe you can come to our office. We can show with our tools.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. And then we'll tell you guys who it belongs to. Maybe he will come pick it up. So excited. Actually, my understanding, all right, did I tell you what kind of artist this is? No,
You didn't even say there was an artist.
Okay.
You said that
Well,
they were
according
famous.
to the information from, this was a while ago, that this phone has on it some notes for either notes or voice memos for a hit. Something's gonna be a hit. It's a song. And this is like the only place where they were. So this phone dropped in a vase of water, and that was 2 years ago. And the guy really wants the voice memos.
So if this is a hit on Chinese radio,
Yeah. So the Rewa music is gonna change.
Right.
I think I know who it is.
You don't have any idea.
come on.
All right, who do you write it down?
Just to
You don't have any idea. Let's do some kind of a lottery vote of who can guess. Who does this belong to?
2 years ago, hit song. Guy. It's black or it's white. Guy.
Yes.
Bruno Mars.
Nope.
Can you tell us type of music, or is that too much? Type
You
of
want the
music?
genre?
If I gave you the genre,
Nah,
then
come
you'd
on.
know.
That's who I think it is.
No.
No?
Come on.
No.
You gave 2 clues.
Well, if he'd been right, you would have been like, wow.
Yeah.
Because the person that I wrote down, he's known for making voice notes on.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dr. Dre would be really mad if we told him.
Let's look at our chat. We totally forgot about chat. Hey, chat.
Tupac.
Oh, Mark should stop doing boards and just be Jessa's full-time cameraman. That's a great idea. Mark is a very Mark. You're a star. Let's put a camera on Mark. Mark, guess what? Our other choice of video was going to be if we didn't do this video today. It was going to be let's cure Mark's ear infection. So Mark's got a double ear infection. That's what we were going to ask you guys. Is there some kind of ancient Chinese medicine? Mark can't hear. His ears are filled up with, ear infection. And he With bacteria.
Mark
Yes.
got some water damage.
That same.
Mark is water damage.
Use PCB glue.
Same thing.
Situation like this or no?
Well, so we were watching videos because the internet can fix anything. And we thought we were gonna lay it down. Do you know a candle in your ear? A candle, like yeah. We were gonna do that to Mark to fix his ears. That was our other
I'm
idea.
not convinced that works for your middle ear.
I'm scared.
Yeah, he's scared. He's scared. We're getting trash talked. Mark's scared.
I'm not scared.
We can throw rice on your ear.
Yeah, put rice. Yeah, Mark.
Brown
Put
rice.
brown rice in one side and white rice in the other. And then we can finally answer the question for that guy.
I can't tell if I'm on him or not.
I'd hate for you to lose your accolades
I know.
of camera.
Oh, that's
sorry.
worse.
I'm sorry.
That's even better.
Alright, here we go. Phone obviously belongs to Tupac. Nope. Alright, here's a good question. Is it important to separate the RAM from the CPU when removing it, or can you remove it in one? And I think the additional question is, can you take off, can you just not separate the RAM and the CPU? Just take it off like a sandwich, reball it through magic, and put it on without separating it.
There are different ways you can separate it one piece by one. Also, you can separate it totally.
Without causing solder to spread throughout the layer. So the SD-RAM, the RAM on top of the CPU. So there's a way to actually get that without having the solder cause shorts or spread across the solder.
So it doesn't yeah,
There is a way.
it depends.
Okay.
In different situations, if you hit too much,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright, so news flash. So we have abandoned the microscope entirely, which leaves me out. I can't do that. I have my vision not happening. This looks just like anything else that you do a lot, where you read the situation, adjusting what you're doing. It's not a science, it's an art where you're just trying to make tools that are not ones that you've used before work, which usually means some trial and error until you kind of find some sort of set of air temperature and flow that is really going to be what works for this tool. So you've got to manage the stencil warping, you've got to manage the consistency of the flux, you've got to manage the temperature that this particular solder paste likes to flow at. And you're going to do that by just watching and seeing how the thing responds. All right, now let's see. So, do you have the patience always to completely start over if you have, 10 bad balls? Or do you ever say, close enough, and just install it anyway? Is like my boss is watching, etc. I always do it. I would always start all over again. Are you kidding me?
Just has some very good tough questions.
What a great answer.
Here's my question. I think when you're new to microsoldering, one of the things I tell students a lot, you guys have heard this a lot this week, is that the problem is what the problem is. That you don't want to get in the trap of trying to make the problem be the problem you want to solve. So for beginning microsolderers, a lot of times people will try and make a short circuit be a bad cap rather than have to do a BGA replacement at all because they're less comfortable with BGA. And I think if you kind of go on up the line, that people can say, oh, I really don't want to have to, you know, reball the SD RAM, so I'm going to just try and make it be something else and spend a long time on that. Do you get to the point where you think, sure, I'm just going to pop off this CPU so that I can check the resistance underneath it in some spots, reball it just to rule that out and move on? Do you ever get to the point where you think nothing of that versus always being like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want it to be that? Do you ever just become like it's any other chip? And my other question, which one of these guys is a better translator?
Most of the time when they keep both.
Getting a little old.
My understanding for the first course you were asking me to which point we think it's too difficult to fix this problem.
It's not quite that.
Make a shortcut to.
No, it's if you're a beginner, you think, oh, I don't want to change this little chip
Because it's hard to replace.
because I might mess it up. And so if I take it off, I don't think I can get it back on. So even though that's the problem, I'm going to just spend a lot of time, maybe it's this, maybe I should take off that instead. You know, like you're going to work around that problem because you don't want it to be that problem. Just because you're avoiding it, like cleaning your room. You just don't want to do it. And so when you are experienced then, you don't think anything of taking off that chip. Oh, it's probably that chip. Because you're going to immediately take off that chip because that's clearly what it is. So with experience and sitting here doing a ton of CPU transfers, do you ever get to that point when you consider taking off the CPU and putting it back on as just any other chip, no big deal? All right, so Edge has a good question. When you're putting a CPU back on the board, soldering it back on the board, would the CPU ever get a tiny nudge so that to be sure it's liquid and seated? Or never do that, the CPU, the balls are too close together, and if you did a nudge, then they'll... So nudge CPU, you know, nudge, like
push,
nudge.
slight push on CPU to make sure balls are liquid.
each has its one way soldering. We try to push it, and then it will be come back. Then
Yeah.
it makes it good.
Yes.
CPU I think is the same.
So he says the same.
CPU 它在直的时候放在板上，焊接好之后，我们是
I
推一
think there
下
has
它
to be
会
like a
回来就
microscopy.
Yeah, the imperceptible
Like
touch.
spot, yeah.
No. Sorry.
硬盘的话就推一下，CPU 不能推。
所以其他都可以出声。
He says hell's no.
Hell no.
Right, yeah. That's my understanding as well, but CPU, unlike
Yeah.
other chips,
Yes.
make it be exactly right,
Otherwise, you have
and then try to make it sink down without movement, because the balls are so close together,
Yes.
so much ground, that it's the one where you just want it to go and not click into place, like other chips.
差一个点。
I think that this job, you have to do it a lot to become proficient at it, which is like anything else, means it's a specialty, not general. Like Mark is a specialist in trace repair. He's done so much trace repair that it is effortless, and things that would take even other experienced people a long time, Mark could do in a minute. And you guys saw that when you did a tracer. You were like, oh, just yeah, it totally annihilated like spaghetti tracer. So I kind of think that, like in medicine, you have a general physician, family physician that sees sick people, and then you have specialists, anesthesiologist, a cardiologist, a neurologist. I think the CPU guy is a specialist, which means it's going to be you. You're going to have to do all the CPUs of the whole world. Well, all right. So for everybody else, Rewa likes large batches and stuff. So we're going to make a box. Send all your CPU transfers into the box called, CPU specialist box. When there's 100 of them in there, send them to China. Done. That's it. No, we're all solved. Now solved. Yes, CPU transfers now officially solved.
So a customer at the conference, they were so excited when they saw we offer this service, and they were even more excited when they saw the price.
Ooh, nice.
Well, that was the other experience that we had when we were like doing CPU outsourcing stuff. That it was like I can't believe that.
Only question I would really have is how much is shipping?
Motherboard is more expensive because it's more. So you need to pick them very carefully.
Got it.
And it's not heavy.
Okay. But for like microscopes and stuff like that, ordering from China, that's it.
Then the shipping fee is more expensive.
All right, Karen has a good question. Why not use balls instead of the paste? Mark, you like balls. You know balls? Here, show him the balls. Reach up. Mark, you can't grab it.
Well, I
Like,
can't.
In here,
Can't see what I'm pointing
You know
at.
balls in there. Look in there. Here, grab it. Ugh. Those ones are big. Like it's another way to do reballing of chips is to sprinkle that on, go like this, make them go in the holes, heat up. Then they're very uniform, very even.
修笔记本有用过。
He said, no, that's a pain in the ass.
Is it for repair the motherboard of computer or the?
No. This stuff, you know,
This stuff.
yeah.
you can use?
Mm-hmm. Mark does it on most of his Samsung bigger chips. He uses
Yes,
balls
bigger
instead
chips.
of paste.
Like,
I
I
use
use
bigger balls.
0.3 millimeter and 0.2 millimeter.
0.3, 0.2.
Those
Yeah,
are,
these ones
those
are
are
too
just
big.
big.
Yeah.
But
Like, see how I have them in here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like these. They're the size that you end up with on a chip. 0.2, 0.25.
I have no idea what I'm pointing at. What am I doing?
Mark Schaefer, the human tripod. There you
Specializes
go, Mark.
in shaky video.
There you
Yeah.
go. Whoopsie. Yes, did we do the same chat? What about another method? Some people like to use glass when they're reballing. So you can put a sheet of glass on top of the stencil so that the balls can't come out. So that's another sort of popular way of doing reballing. Does work. I think that, I mean, I used to like that. I don't do it anymore. I used to like it when the stencils were less easy to use than they are now. Today's stencils are good. Yesterday's stencils, the round stencils, were sticky. You know, the balls didn't like to drop down through them.
I think we're gonna have to get some of these 3D stencils.
We never use it as balls.
Maybe we can try later.
Do you guys have a store that people can stop by and see you when they go to China?
We are doing no in China. We don't have a store there, but international online shop next month.
Yeah, rubbery silicone stuff. How's it going? You need us to play some Rewa music?
People keep asking me music. I need to ask our marketing department which music they use.
Hey, it's Kevin from the crafts table.
There's DG.
Oh yeah, there we go. Now this guy, DG, this guy has spent a long time studying the problem of the baseband power management, baseband PMU in iPhone 7, and he believes that the problem is that one of the ground pads on the end of the chip gets pulled up just like audio IC C12, just like 6 Plus Touch IC M1. And that when you, most people think, oh, it's ground, who cares? It's not important. He's believes that the lack of that last ground pad destabilizes the output of that chip so that it, I think, ultimately damages the Qualcomm baseband CPU. What do you think about that? We'll get back to you. He says, we'll get back to you. Yes, you can swap the SD RAM with a different SD RAM. That one I already know. Yes. It's Michael Oberdick. What's up, Michael Oberdick? Yes, like the iPhone 10 board, I thought it was very easy to reball it using balls. You know, paste, you know, like you know the iPhone 10, you have to reball the board. Those balls are bigger than on most of these chips. You know what you end up with. And so using preformed balls, I thought was easier.
Easier.
Yeah, because you just kind of go like, you know, like when you're a little kid in China, do you play the little game with those balls and you have to go like this, you know, to get them to go in the holes? You know what I mean? Is that a worldwide universal trait? So it's like that, where you have to use your finger to make it go into the stencil holes, and then heat it up, sucks onto the chip. I thought that was easier because you can make them bigger than you could with paste, and because the two boards seem to be, if they get warped at all, there's kind of can be like a gap, and the bigger balls make it easier to suck together. I think. Never balls.
Are they from China? With balls?
Balls? I mean, they're a pretty standard thing. I mean, those balls can get that other good stuff. Get that one. Yeah. Well, that one too. All of those. Grab that with the green circle. Straight ahead. Yeah, you got it. That. Looks like medicine. Shake them in marker. Yeah. That.
Never use these before.
Never use the pre-made solder balls. So either you're going to go back home and be like, because they're stupid, or you're going to be like, oh, these are amazing. And then it's be like, Rewa says, we're redoing all of them.
Then the news story is, do you mind if I take a picture and ask my phone?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You know where you can get those? iPad Rehab Supply. Yeah, give them a pack of balls to take home. I'm pretty sure we have one of those. Here you go. Put it in your suitcase. For you. Don't go through security and they'll be like, well, these are bullets. Give me. They're not BBs. Dark Sorcerer says, RAM is RAM and interchangeable. It's not like it's something important, like a home button. Can you talk a little bit about the NAND programmer?
他们有没有看有没有这种该这个网？
He means this blue box.
The NAND, if you get like this, the sheets that is able to
CPU sensor?
Really?
Yeah.
This is the iPhone 6 one. Do you know this? Do you know this? From the
NAND reader?
yeah.
Yeah.
This the old one.
Yeah.
The iPhone 6.
iPhone 6 is 64 bytes.
I think so. Yeah. Or so this is 5 series and 6, not the 64-bit. The gold one is for 6S 7. So this one is the cheap one.
With the color, I think.
Yeah, so you put a NAND in, and then this does magic. We don't know what it does. I'll show you. Oh my God, all right, we gotta stop and do nothing but just say translate all of this stuff on CXW. Like this is I'm dying to know these words. This is going to be awesome.
I think the function is the same to
The other one?
read the original.
All right, here we go. So if we had a NAND in there, then you can do read, right?
Read,
Right. So you
yes.
could get a new NAND.
Yeah.
But this one does repair, and this does total magic. We don't
Can
have no
repair
idea what it does.
error 9.
Yeah, and it no, I can if your error 9 is because your NAND is not formatted or can't be read or can't be understood.
Maybe the basic information in the name is from software.
Some kind of magic.
Yeah.
But and to me, conceptually, it's like if you have a USB stick and the computer just can't read it, and it says, "Would you like to format this?" Yes.
Initiate.
Then yeah, initialize. Right. That it seems like conceptually this does the same thing for the older NANDs. Charles, what the hell is this thing do? Have you ever seen this before? I bet you could figure it out.
Excuse me, Jason.
Yes.
Do you have another piece of Stencil?
I have another piece of that stencil? Is that the good one? I mean, I reball CPU so much, I might have used them all up. I don't know. Let's take a look. All right, let's see. What does that say?
It says we need to adjust it. I don't know what does it mean. How to adjust it?
How to adjust the microscope?
Yeah.
We need to. It says I don't know.
Oh,
The camera. Use Google.
I think people want it to be under the microscope, but that's not how he does it. So too bad.
Yeah, it's not under the microscope. So there's nothing to see under the microscope. If you would like, you can look at this beautiful makeup sponge. There you go.
There you go.
Now it's not so boring.
With a bunch of.
And I got feedback about the bowls. Definition means that in China, usually we don't use this for repair, but the factories use
Okay.
factories.
Okay.
Factories in China use the pre-made solder.
But for residential,
Yeah.
So who wants to take over being cameraman?
I think that what I found about other reballing, I used to struggle with reballing in general, and then one, I learned if it's really clean, then it works. Two, I learned that if you make your airflow go way down, then it works. And three, I learned that certain stencils just always work. And even like if you have a pack of the identical stencils, one will be like the good one that is easy to use, always works, effortless. You reball anything, it's totally no big deal. I would think it would be incredibly challenging if someone took away my good stencil and I had to make up, how am I gonna
But are all the 3D stencils that you have like good?
I mean, they're all from the guy that made the good ones.
Yeah.
Are they all individually good? I don't know. But this is if I were to lose this one, then I would go open up another one and expect for it to be
Okay.
good. When do we get to break this board in half?
Soon.
Soon. All right, I'm done with this. Where's my camera? Because that's really funny. When you guys get back to China, you need to make sure that you tell Kevin that us and everybody online, we think it's very great for you to be willing to do this. You know, I mean, this is probably not going to work out, which is totally fine. But the spirit of saying, sure, we'll try it, we'll talk to some people online is fantastic. So Kevin is not allowed to get cranky about the CPU reballing. Just letting you know.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Because I can squash it. It's great.
I think they understand this. That's why we create competition-free videos on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Very kind.
How's it going? Do you need a couple of cigarettes? He's like, yeah.
差不多之前了，之前差不多做完了。啊？
感谢我们，他的说话都无所谓的，但是很感谢我们小这样的那个今天自己，然后他还说，让我们告诉这个要。
Did this iPhone 6 have error 9? Nope. This iPhone 6 was water damaged with a 1BA SD RAM short between the SD RAM and CPU, and multiple repair attempts.
自求治好了，自求治好了。
Some part is done. He said something is done. 是什么？
Yeah, no, I'll make sure.
Has to be perfect rules. Not acceptable.
All right, so when you get back home, are you going to be like, hey, Gabby, this is we did a little.
She knows. She was watching the video. So I told her.
Oh, Adam Carper bought solder paste from Lewis in a syringe.
Syringe, solder paste, syringe.
Yeah.
All right, so what's happening? Are you happy with your reball, or are you gonna break this board in half? Which is it gonna be? Very satisfied. All right.
Good.
Yes.
Really?
Are you changing the RAM? Oh, the fly. Or just reballing? Reballing, I think.
接下来需要把硬盘取下来。
He is going to take off the
NAND? Mm-hmm. That's what Q's Tech Service also has, a 1BA SD-RAM short on iPhone 6. Well, I know who you can send it to. Yeah, it's 8. Hey, Mark. Mark's outside.
He's out of here.
Can't take it.
He's probably out smoking.
Yeah.
obligated with his ears.
Yeah.
See, Q's Tech Service. Come to find out the chip was no good. After redoing, now it's going to replace it with a different RAM. Alright, so we're going to take off this RAM. Back up at our standard soldering, desoldering temperature using the good old-fashioned X-Acto knife. It should be on there with leaded solder because it's prior repair attempt. No microscope. That's the thing. I think if you want to really be doing stuff in the Chinese way, you have to be able to do it without a microscope, which I can't. I would have to get one of those visors. Well, I mean, like I take off hand all the time, and I will do it like this to get it hot, but then I have to go under the microscope in order to see that it's okay to take it. I can't see it
With like VR lenses.
without that.
Yeah, like so you can constantly
Yeah.
just see the microscope.
Just see on the whole board like this.
Yeah.
这个刀片太快了，容易烧到图案。它这个刀片不适合拆这个芯片。
The knife is not for this.
No, it's done with reballing.
Do you have another knife?
I would put, yeah, I would grab this and that, and then
Not
take
that
this.
sharp.
Yeah, I use one of these. I would use that. Okay. Ah! I think it goes on the other side. Ah!
Microsoft inside?
And which people can work with the most busy patients.
Soldering supplies. We see who can replace most any digitizer connected to the video. One time me and Jason did a video, and he bet that we couldn't do something like 3 or 4. We won that.
Oh, there it is.
Now you're going to be really mad when you were like, shoot, the EEPROM chip is not even on this board.
Do you have the EEPROM reader?
No, I don't.
You don't?
It's like, oh shit, I worked for 2 hours.
No, I'm good. What? Huh? Yeah, so there's a receiver board. So we've got donor board and receiver board.
Because there's too much damage on the board.
Yeah.
Well, there's technically not. I mean, that board's kind of okay, but the question, the original reason why we got into this mess. Well, the coil isn't a big deal, but the reason we got into this problem is because there was a short between the SDRAM and the CPU.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to have to take off the SDRAM and then likely also the CPU. And if you're going to do that, then you might as well, instead of putting it back on a board that has some damage and it had a little bit of a leak on me in the 0.04, then let's just put it back on a good board. So this is a board where it was a working board that Mark took off the CPU just to play with. So it's kind of like a good candidate receiver board because it already has CPU harvested and thrown away, so it just needs to get manned, and then the EEPROM chip. And we're going to leave baseband CPU alone because this is just for data.
iPhone 6 doesn't need it.
Right. So tomorrow, I'm going to sleep in, and you guys can all just replace a couple of CPUs before I get here, just for the lab, just for
It's the
practice.
final test.
Right.
Final test.
Yeah.
That's the final exam.
Yeah. The hardest test of all.
Maybe do the race.
Hmm?
Suggest maybe do the race.
Maybe there's a race. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do a big race.
Oh.
Actually, what we really need to do is to get the secret project done that Mark is working on.
Oh, that's awesome. That thing with the LEDs.
Yes, thing that needs hundreds of those. What would cause a short between the CPU and the RAM? Too much heat causing a ball to reflow and jumping the PCB gap? Yeah, so Adam Carver, the cause of this fairly common problem is usually shield removal damage. So if you blow hot air straight at the board rather than on top, if you're kind of coming at it on an angle or from the side, that will, just like anything else, Mickey Mouse ear the underfill, and it will cause those very edge balls to swell up and bridge to something else. If that something else is ground, then that's going to create a SDRAM short. And that's a pretty common thing in iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. I don't think the RAM chips are defective. I haven't heard anything like that. So your approach there is quite different than when I take off RAM. My airspeed would be a lot higher, but the temperature would be lower.
会说他那个 second
I think
做的时候，
that
它
yields
的
around the
温度
same.
会低一点，然后温度
We
风
don't
很
have to
高一点，
come off way faster.
因为它这个温度上是
Different breakers, different using technique.
Hmm?
Maybe different people is different using
Yeah, there's
technique.
definitely different styles. Just sort of another reason why, kind of quoting temperature and airflow is a bad idea, because it's an art. It's not, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It's not a recipe. So you can see that what he's doing at that temperature was 391. That's really hot for a quick. But the airflow is down at 68%. That's quite low. You can hear it. You can hear the velocity is low. And he's very, very close. So he's able to just have very hot air at very low flow, working very close to the board as his style to avoid puffing things and damaging things as just sort of like a low velocity, but very hot, very close air. And that's as opposed to if you're watching other videos, about other microsolderers, a different style. My style would be less patience, more get done quick, and I would go for a lower temperature, cooler air at higher speed to bring that sort of more of a larger area, up to a melting temperature to do the cleansing. He's very focal in a very hot, very small spot. But I think if you were then going to apply, let's say you're watching Jessa solder all week long, and you decide we're going to go play with some CPUs. If you were to translate the working air temperature and distance, that I generally use to this job, expecting it to take as long as it takes to get these chips off, then you would really be damaging the other side of the board. So I think a lot of it is learning the feedback of your system. Yeah, sitting around doing it a lot when you get back home. But it's great to be able to have other folks near you that you can ask questions to. For example, I know Mark has been, he does a lot of CPU work on Samsungs, so he is, proficient with large chip transfers. He can take the CPU off of the Samsung, board A and put it on board B, and he was challenged to go and figure out how to do that, and he does that pretty well. But then when you apply that to iPhones, there's small questions. How much of that rubbery silicone on the top of the CPU do you take off? If you try to take it all off, you start sandpapering the top of the CPU. But if you leave it, are you then making pockets for the solder balls to sit in that they can't really make a good connection? Tiny little questions like that, I think, make it really good to just have somebody you can ask. Easy breezy, beautiful NAND reball.
Say the NAND is probably not as hard
as
the CPU.
NAND is forgiving. So NAND is a great place to start learning reball. Right, and especially if you do something like buy a NAND programmer. A NAND programmer can do jobs of taking a NAND, which is expensive, but if you've got a bunch of them from, let's say, that lot of eBay, or the lot of phones you bought from whoever, yeah, they're going to still have NANDs.
Yeah.
You go buy a new NAND, a NAND can range in price up, it could be $100 for a NAND.
So you can reprogram or use NAND.
Yes, so you can take a NAND, and then if you take, let's say, the NAND that we just took off of this board, you can read it. As long as you can read it, then you can take a different NAND that might be bigger, 64 instead of 16 or whatever, and then you can swap that and write the NAND information from the original.
That's why people could expand the storage in the iPhone 6s.
Yeah.
Before it was.
All right, let's.
Stumped by software.
Oh really?
I don't think you can do it anymore.
Can you not do it on the 7s also?
All right, so we're gonna now.
Actually, no.
You should be able
I
to.
saw someone do
Clean up
512
board
iPhone 7.
on our receiver board. So this is a
Would they take that
CPU
off?
transplant, NAND transplanting from transplant. We've taken off the NAND on the receiver board, taken off the NAND on the donor board. We've not killed the fly.
I'll play some chicken.
That's right.
We do this or drop down.
Hmm?
We do this or drop down.
Right.
Fly just goes right for the hot air.
Yeah, let's just, you're welcome. There's the EEPROM. All right, so harvested the EEPROM. Now don't sneeze. All right, so June, have you ever mixed up your NAND or CPU and forgotten which one is which? Like there's two CPUs, donor, receiver, like mix them up.
那你换的时候换错过吗？把那个两个板，把好的换到把那个原来的换到原来的板上去，换错过吗？碰过吗？
He says no, I'm not a noob.
要把它摆开再把它讲开。
Oh, I see. Now, one time when I was first starting out, I I was learning how to do TriStar jobs on iPhone 5, which was difficult because of the position of the TriStar by the CPU. And so I decided to, this guy on eBay was doing it for very cheap on eBay. So I decided I'm going to see if this is real. So I took one that needed TriStar. I sent it to the guy for cheap, like $20. And he sends it back and it's working. And I was like, what did he do? So I took off the soldered on shield and then I looked under the microscope and he had written on top of the TriStar chip, something you. But I couldn't tell if it was thank you or fuck you. You know, and so I sent a message going, I got your message. And he's like, yeah, you know, he was a super nice guy. I was like, I wasn't sure what it said. And then he was like, it said thank you. It said thank you. I remember. But I thought that was pretty impressive.
He was signing his job.
Exactly.
That's what those
Yeah,
$10 IC jobs
crazy.
are, the touch IC.
He knew you were going to look at you too.
He must have, yeah. I think he knew who I was.
I'll do that on my TriStar jobs. Thank you for your
I'm gonna write something else and they're like, don't call me YouTube. My name's not YouTube.
Miyamo not YouTube.
Speak Spanish.
No. Just a little.
So he doesn't use the microscope a lot.
His eye.
Huh?
His eye is microscope.
I think those glasses, man, they have like microscope lenses on them or something.
That's what I need. I'm gonna go across the street, the eye doctor.
They're like
whatever.
quadfocals.
You can get those like the eye watch repair guys, you know? Like,
Yeah. One student came here with the Optivisor, you know, which we had one at home. My son used to use it for Legos. Like it was like, I don't mess around, you know, with like Optivisor with a Lego
That's
project.
super serious. I
Right,
love
yeah.
that. I love that.
Oh, by the way, how was the competition?
Oh, it's good. He actually won that one, so we had to go to the states one in the future,
Wow.
and you know they did well, but you know it was kind of a drag because I thought it was going to be done that day, like yay we're done, but it was like yay we go on to the next thing. Oh, you know, like, yeah.
我先试一下。
I need some kind of a prize for killing the fly. And I had a fly swatter.
What would the prize be?
I don't know. I need to.
Free tours?
if I
It's
kill
gonna
the
be
fly,
June's
would you
gonna
fix
read
my
your
iPhone
CPU
7
for
audio?
My boss.
So, about 15 minutes, we'll have a couple of pizzas.
Oh, a fly swatter?
Huh?
And a fly swatter?
Yeah.
Oh, you need a fly swatter.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry.
Yeah. God, what did I mean? We don't.
Oh
my God! Oh my God! All right, so you're no. I don't think anybody can see anything
So that one's done, booted up. It's over, and now we're on number 2.
Something like that.
You
My
wish.
boss, whenever there's a fly in the room,
Yeah.
when it lands on the table,
Yeah.
he gets right next to it, super close to it. He grabs it and throws it on the ground. I'm like, how the hell did you do that?
Wow.
And you haven't learned yet.
No,
you
I
can
have not.
practice here.
Adam Carver says, as strange as this may sound, to me this is more exciting than sports on TV. Yes, it is a veritable Super Bowl. Yes. Will it work? Will we get to find out whose phone this belongs to? Who is it? Next live stream feature, instant reball replace. All right, here's my next question. When you guys make a Rewa video, does the raw footage take this long? Do you do like many takes, you know, like professionals, like, you know, okay, do it again, I need to get it from this angle, do it again, the lighting was too dark, do it again, and then, you know, cut it all together into one little...
Most of the time he was on the videos, I'm going to ask him how it's done because I wasn't here when they took
Yes.
it.
I want to know what happens if we send this video to Rewa Video Department and say, please spit back a nice little, just zip up a CPU transplant, CPU transplant in 19 seconds with music.
You want me to hold the camera? Is your hand tired?
It's okay.
I can hold it if you want to.
有些也
You
会
sure?
有的。
但是大部分时间都是一次就过嘛。
对。
Something that I found with this culture is that everyone's very kind. Very kind.
We are like this.
Yeah.
So most of the time it's just one take.
One take.
One take, but for some special steps, they need to repeat it. We got a marketing team with about how many people? More than 10.
Our marketing department is 0. Maybe 1 sometimes. We did just get a new website. The store section though is still, it's burgundy with dark green font.
I wear an iPad Rehab shirt when I go shopping sometimes.
Yeah, so there's that. I did think we don't have any sign out front and we don't have any sign in the window anymore.
That was
No.
the thing.
We're
We're
like,
like,
Where is it?
we're like, where is this place at?
But you'll understand, we had signs, but then, you know, a better thing came along. A dude came by and offered to wash our windows for $20. Sweet! Down come the signs. Look how clean those windows are. I mean, that's secretly impressive.
Yeah.
I know that you guys are like, oh, there's no sign, but man, it's really
the window was spotless.
wow,
Man.
it's like spotless.
Yeah. Wait, how long ago did that happen?
It was like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
It's also a good idea for marketing. People keep asking where you are, so more people get to know about you.
They generate interest, you know?
Yeah.
Keep the whole thing
Maybe we should debrand our sign.
Alright, so this guy's asked twice. GHI888 says he really would like to, he must have joined late. Can you ask him what is the success rate on transplanting? Which we already talked about that, but he's
90.
Depends on if you're doing it manually.
They do it with the machine.
yeah. Depends on if are we going to do a CNC machine or by hand. So with the machine, like 80 or 90% success.
这个你说的是如果用机器做的话，成功率是
And if there's no machine, sit around and wait until the
可
machine
以
is
可以做到180多。
I knew it.
因为芯片它本身坏了。
unless the
Where did I?
It's double confirmed with the machines more than 80% unless the chip is itself damaged.
Unless what?
Unless the chip itself damaged.
Unless the chip itself is damaged, which I would think would happen a lot. That's what I think. You know, like we went down this road a little bit, and then pretty much said the success rate, or the number of times the chip is electrically damaged for data, you know, because we're not fixing those things.
No. It's like.
Friend putted 6 in his home button.
Oh yeah.
6.
It's like, do you have an iPad mini that doesn't power on?
One line of the home button CPU is short. Is there any way to get data or not? You need to try with a dongle. So plug in one of the home button dongles, Ali, and you can press the home button through the dongle. I don't know whether or not that is going to require that particular CPU line. I doubt it. It may. But that's what I would definitely try.
Would that short out the entire
CPU?
That shorted out so that I wouldn't boot?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jessa, what flux is Rewa to? I just personally witnessed the Rewa team using Chipquik 291. Yeah! That's the picture I want. Chipquik 291 coming in. I'm gonna rewind this video until I get that picture of flux. All right, so if you're just joining, we are coming down the home stretch of what's going to be an amazing success or a gut-wrenching failure. We don't know yet. This is a celebrity phone. This is a celebrity phone from someone that most people will have heard of.
He's coming to get the phone right now. It's coming, right?
Actually, that would be pretty cool.
Yes.
That would be cool if we called him up and be like, hey, guess what? That would be sweet. We will totally do that.
A live phone call. Share the fix it.
You have his phone number?
I have his phone, which I think has his wife's phone number.
Unless it's changed within the past 2 years.
That is true. That is true. From which country is this stream? East meets West. This is from iPad Rehab headquarters in beautiful Windows. Okay, pause with no sign.
You know what? It's going to boot up, and your phone is going to go, yeah, I already released the album that was going to go on.
I know, that's exactly what you're like, wait, don't you like that? Wait, you didn't notice? That's been up for like a year and a half. Right. Louis Rossman's iPhone. Now that would be hilarious. Let's call up Louis. Hey.
Oh, Louis don't use no iPhone?
Louis doesn't have an iPhone.
Yeah, he's got an Android phone. He's smart.
Louis has a mobile. Alright, that's a legitimate question. Do Rewa people, do you use bottom heaters if you were doing this job, or let's say like an iPhone 7 audio IC? Would you get one of these bottom heaters and work on that?
我们在底部加热的时候，fix iPhone 7 audio IC is using this。底部加热的时候会用这个加热去修嘛，把它部分。
一般人会用这个曲套件。
去什么件？
曲套件。
说的曲套件是
Microscopy.
Why would you think that
He doesn't use a microscope. He doesn't use solder balls. He does use a McDonald's napkin.
We just use that machine to remove like CPU, baseband, the big chips.
Yep. So he uses it for big chips.
Yeah.
Only. Alright, big chips only.
CPU 就会用那个。
取 CPU 可以是。
Oh.
Did you get it?
取 CPU 可以。
I thought it was the phone.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I was like, oh no!
Like, well, that phone's gone.
Can be used for
No, but
CPU
the
as well.
phone.
Can be used for CPU as well.
What?
Can be used for
Yes,
CPU
can
as
be
well.
used for Alright, Patrick wants to know, what is June's favorite repair?
Not this one.
This one. Not this one. Anyone but this one. I want to go back to the guy with the boxes standing outside of the conference.
He loves you.
Yeah.
C52 like everyone else.
I love doing that one. It's so awesome.
有人问你最喜欢的
Yeah,
维修的项
it's
目
so
是什么？
satisfying. It's like one cap. Yes.
I remember the first one I ever got. I was still working in the shop, and
still back then.
Does he have a favorite repair?
Not this, he said.
Not this, right? That's what I said. Not this
But
one.
I knew how to find a short. I found this one by plugging power in while I was holding the board in my hand and burned my finger.
Oh.
And the cap. It's like, oh, that's a
hot.
guy right there.
Yeah.
Jessa, do you have any free vacancies at iPad Rehab?
Free vacancies.
It's a free vacancy.
We
don't know
need
yet.
a video person.
We don't know yet where.
I mean, Sky's doing great, but I don't think he's gonna stay.
We're waiting to see if Mark recovers
Rewa's
or
video
not.
repairs look easy.
Yeah. We're waiting
Especially
to
this
see-
one.
Yeah.
You guys are all, we're gonna be probably sold out of stencils by the end of the day. Everybody wants to
I'll still be able to buy one.
Which iPhone is the most difficult for CPU transfer or CPU reball?
All of them.
That's a good one because there are differences. You know, 7 is easier than 6, except for splitting off the RAM, right?
See, from my experience, I would much rather do a 6 than a 7.
How about
Everything. I think all the cool kids like the 7.
Seven.
Yeah. C. Boom. Wait, it's
What
the
about
easy
eight?
one.
Yeah, he thinks that.
Yes.
Ha-
See. Me. My buddy June. We get it. 7. That's the one. That's the easy one.
Has anyone here done an iPhone 8 or CPU reball or removal?
No, but I have fixed 2 iPhone 8s. One
What's it-
needed
what's
a
it-
dock.
What's the signature problem on that?
Wow.
That's a
At
good
the-
question.
That's such a hard repair.
What is a signature problem for iPhone 8?
At the moment.
At the moment.
Yeah.
All right. There is one. Anybody know what it is?
Boot, right?
No service.
Probably
Well, I know
IUIC
that-
and
I know that PCs, a lot of them are having rebooting issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one that it's rebooting and also no camera.
It's not a baseband issue.
No rear camera. And front camera. Those
The-
2 things.
The common fault in iPhone 8, as it is today, is going to be pry damage
Mm.
at the battery connector, which is going to knock off what is now the modern day gas gauge filter, but it's not a gas gauge filter anymore. It's a tiny little MOSFET that's job is to convey battery data to the logic board, and it doesn't go down the SWI line anymore. It's a new line, the HDQ interface to Tigris. So the function then is going to be a little bit different than if you knocked off the similar thing on any of the other iPhones. So if you knock off the gas gauge filter in the iPhone SE or the iPhone 5S or the iPad mini, where it's all very common, then you'll have this sort of battery percentage reporting error. But if you do it in the iPhone 8, then, or we saw this, that iPad Pro that I fixed the other day,
Yes.
that same exact problem, the iPad Pro was accidentally knocked off. So those sort of modern generation are handling their battery data differently, and those guys will respond by not booting. So that's, you know, kind of a bigger deal. And or they'll appear to charge, but then they'll stop at 1%, or
Okay.
just not boot at all. They won't boot if they don't know to stop trying to boot so that they can charge the battery. They're just kind of, you know,
They don't get information, so.
right, so they don't know to settle down.
that'll be a nice repair.
Yeah, it's a very nice repair. Alright, so what's
Simple
going on
MOSFET.
now? So we're cleaning up the receiver board we're cleaning off the underfill. And I think everybody would probably want to see what this looks like on under the microscope a little bit, right? Because everybody wants to know, like, how aggressive, how deep do we need to go with this? This is a CPU that Mark took off a while ago.
a couple
So you
pads
can see
missing.
those pads. Well, missing pads aren't a big deal because what did they used to be attached to? We're a little bit out of frame now. Remember, just like in audio IC damage we talked about, a pad can be attached by a horizontal trace. Yep.
Do you have silver mask?
Yes. No, what are you talking about? You didn't bring some from home? We have a mess.
There.
Oh, you
Green.
see it? Oh, there it is. All right, we have this. Here's how I do it. Let me tell you.
Oh,
come on.
Sergio wins.
Oh, you got the fly?
Sergio gets a free
Sergio,
repair.
That's it. You're my favorite student. I'm taking a picture of you and I'm putting you on the wall. I
Fly
squirt it
swatter.
on here. Oh, you know what I do? All right, you got to watch this. Here, you're going to be impressed. Where's the? All right, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how I do this. Okay, you got to get this tool. You gotta, your hair is too short for this. Got a piece of hair. Try to get one of the gray ones. Then it makes a perfect paintbrush. So I, squirt some out here. And go like that. Perfect. Paint it. You're gonna love it. Try it.
He says no.
He's like, no.
He's like, I don't want such a hair.
That's way too tricky. All right.
Can we see what he's doing?
Probably not, because the.
Even he got good practice, he can't get enough hair to do in the future.
That's right. Yes.
I usually use a sewing needle to get that, and then I wipe it off a little bit so that I just right now.
You'd be surprised. The single human hair is a perfect paint. It's just to go in between those guys. It's really good.
I'm gonna start selling just a hair and iPad repair supply.
Well, it was during a class where we kind of were like, oh, well, if you use your hair, oh, let's try it. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then we're like, you should sell that on iPad repair. Like $1 for the brown ones and 10 cents for the gray ones.
Just like a bag full of.
But see the missing pads? If you look at them, do they have a torn trace from the side?
If we zoom in closer, I think we might see. Oh wait, no.
Do they have a torn trace coming up from the bottom?
No.
Or is there no torn trace at all?
No torn trace. So they're not connected, no contact.
And you can look it up on tools, but your eyeballs tell you there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not a lily pad sitting on a stem. There's just nothing there. So they're gone.
So what is he doing now?
He's painting the spaces between. So if we were to click over and look at ZXW at CPU, and let's click ground. So we'll. I guess it's hard when it's like this. Let's do that.
UV good.
Yep.
You want the UV light?
Yeah, it's in here, but there's another one back there. Can you grab that? Thank you very much. Look at how much ground there is under the CPU. And then see how all this red is ground. And see how each one, ground, is in between the lines. How easy is it to get a short?
Very.
Super cool.
Right. So what can we do to protect ourselves from getting a short? What if we make sure to cover up any exposed spots here, like there, like anything exposed that can't talk to each other. So if we paint over it with a solder mask, then we're reducing the risk of getting a short.
Can we see how you paint it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know where Mark is.
See?
Wasn't it up here in the drawer?
There is one up here. See? Don't touch my neighbor, bro. Okay, let's look in here. Right, somebody else look at it. Here we go. Does your desk look like this? Do you feel right at home, or is this a disgrace? Thank you.
It's the same.
Oops. Okay. All right. Ready for action. All right. So this cures the green goo, and it will also blind you.
So don't look right into it.
So avert your eyes. Oh, look at that nice close up of the lid.
Nice.
There we go. Great micro solders have a messy desk. It's a fact. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I really do, because we people in the course, we kind of divide into clean deskers and messy deskers. And I think it takes both, because clean deskers keep fastidious records. They're the guys with the Excel spreadsheets with all the diode mode stuff. They'll have a record of things like, you know, hey, do you remember that time that you saw, like, you know, insert weird pattern here? And they'll be like, just one. Yes. But they're at a disadvantage because of that fastidiousness. They're slow. And so on this job, give up. Like, you know, the second you had to reball that CPU a second time, flip a table, I'm gone.
Yes,
Bye.
Right, exactly. Right. And so so the messy deskers are going to say good enough and continue on, so they can stay excited and stick with these projects and often get results where clean deskers would have given up out of fatigue. So it kind of takes both, I think.
I see deskers have all the weird janky jumpers all over the place.
Yeah. Like that one jumper that I made.
Are you a messy desker?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, who in here is a clean desker?
My coworker.
Kind of.
I usually clean it on Friday before I leave, but that's it.
Mine just hasn't
Clean
been broken in
deskers are
yet.
definitely drawn to other fields for sure.
I clean mine on Fridays when I leave. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I was
Not all the time.
My desk was a mess even when it was a programmer, so imagine that.
That means that you think correctly.
Wait, another fly?
Yeah, there's a
Swatter.
Where's the swatter? It's on his shoes. On his
Where's the
shoes.
swatter?
He has it. He has it. It's on his shoe. Oh, you're too slow. Don't just hit him
No, I'm
around.
just kidding.
He's like.
Don't land on my face. Just land on my face.
Oh, no worries, just on your computer.
All right, it's happening. Here it comes. All right, Mark, you're missing it.
I think he went for pizza. Hey, look at that. You do all this work and you get a pizza. You say?
You don't get money, you get pizza. Say, let's do this.
Yeah, it could be worse and get nothing.
Well, I did kind of have an idea that it would be fun to go down to the Chinese food store. That place is so terrible. But I have gone down there a few times to have been like, I need you guys to come and help me read some of this stuff on some stuff.
Is it a Chinese restaurant?
Well, yeah.
Kind of restaurant.
Kind of, yeah.
American Chinese restaurant.
You also have two menus here in America in the Chinese restaurant, because in Europe, if Europeans go to the Chinese restaurant, they always get a Western menu, and only Chinese go there to get the Chinese menu.
Right, yes.
It's a secret thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In grad school, there were like the Korean guy, the Chinese guy, who was like, none of you are eating anything like what's in the restaurant. What is this?
Yes. Sesame chicken is not authentic.
That's right. Yes. Sesame chicken.
There's no General So in China. Yeah.
So did you put no flux under there? Or a little bit?
下面装汗油，是汗油吗
Yes.
？Yes.
Yes, I put no flux.
Yes, I put.
Oh, yes, I put flux. Okay. We'll have to rewind. Yes.
Did you put flux
Did you not put flux? Yes.
Yes, I did. So I think that CPU, this is the big thing, the big lineup, because unlike tomorrow when it's all day VGA in here, and there's a whole lot of, you know, not having soldering defects of a head on a pillow because you see that shift of, you know, surface tension being broken. With CPU, that is not happening.
I'm scared.
It's like split screen. What practical board repair school students try to catch a fly while Rewa solders a CPU. All right. Great job, Sky. I'm not sure why that's blinking though.
Which is hard, catching a flyer.
All right, so he's using his same soldering temperature as when he was taken off the NAND, which is actually he's lower. So he's at 368. He was at 391, but his airflow is super low at 47. His old airflow was at 68. Forget the CPU. Look at every single eyeball. Look at the there. Looking at the fly. Nobody is looking. It's like CPU soldering. Yeah, but look at that fly. And it's dead?
Yeah, it's dead.
It's stuck up there. Wow. So that happened.
Both equally satisfying.
Both equally satisfying. Alright, so he's going. We ran out of one or the other battery. Let me swap that. Maybe we can do that.
You know, I think it just lost.
I think it's backwards.
Yeah.
No, the battery probably died.
Imagine that.
Oh. God.
So he went up a little bit after he got it seated at very low, like 47, 368. And I'm going to swap this battery. How long does it take to change a CPU? Why don't you put a little pin with that? Ask him which one he wants to do next. We got this nice one, or we got the taco.
I think he's probably gonna go with the taco.
How do you get that so bad damage?
You got it
stuck in the door, yeah.
To the car door. It's different. This guy's slammed it in the car door this way.
Multiple
this guy's
times.
slammed it in the car door this way.
How hard are you closing your doors?
I have one that came in, similar presentation to that, but not to do with the
What? You know, after I with mine, even with a phone, something like
He's tired.
Get him like a towel. Get him a fan.
At least it's not a sweatshop today.
Exactly. We had here we go. Yeah, ready? Okay, you going? All right. He's like, don't touch me. If I nudge this a millimeter, we have to start this shit over.
Just walk out of here.
I'm flipping this desk.
Goodbye, Soul.
You know what's going to be really sad is when every single person walks over there to eat some pizza and you're like finishing up by yourself. And you're like, hey, where's
hey, pizza.
He's like, pizza, hurry up.
Still shorted.
You know what's interesting is that we never did check the chip,
Yeah.
the CPU itself.
You probably should have checked the chip for a
You know,
short.
like to turn it upside down and just say, "Hey chip, are you internally shorted?"
应该没导入，没有导入，就待会冷却之后再试。
They say there's no short, just waiting until it's cooling down.
All right.
他刚才说，通常情况下那个取下来之后，会不会测试一下那个？
You can tell it's not short because this table's not flipped over.
先看看那个本身它有没有坏。 He checked already secretly.
Oh, he's secretly. Wait, what else did you do secretly? That's what I want to know. Do you? Oh wait, what is this other one? Do you need me to secretly get you a working iPhone 6 that belongs to a famous person, just in case we can pull it out of the bag?
Another famous person.
If anybody's hungry, pizza's on the table out here.
I think we should wait for him to finish.
Yeah.
Because that would just be, you know, bad.
Hilarious.
Everybody.
No, no shorts.
他说要大家等你做完了再吃那个披萨。
Thanks, Mark. You're the best. By the way, you missed a whole lot of CPU work.
But you can catch up.
Thanks, Rewa. This is courtesy of Rewa.
Oh,
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's been fun.
For us.
Good work for Julie.
Skies can't feel his arms anymore.
Look at that. They work and
never
pay for
comes
dinner.
We sat on a plane all day for this.
说那个超哥这个举着那个相机，到时候晚上都不知道他自己胳膊在哪儿了，然后你也再也不想回这儿了。
One truth.
That pizza smells so good.
You know what? This is the real difference in technicians. There's absolutely no way in the world that I would wait for it to cool down like you should. I would just say, it would just, I couldn't do it. Hey Mark, if you were doing the CPU job, don't you think the hardest thing would be waiting for it to cool down? All right, so let's look what he's doing now. So this doesn't have the RAM on it, but he's going to test for CPU function.
So what's he looking for to know if it?
I'm making this up, but what I think he's looking for CPU function is 70 milliamps without the ST-RAM. And so he's now doing diode mode in the multimeter, and he's probing around at various CPU inputs, and he's checking just you would if this was a power a PMU job. So he's checking to see if any of the memorized CPU power line inputs are short to ground or not. And so far, I think he's okay. They look normal to me. And I haven't heard him say, "God damn it." Right.
他解释说你在测试那个下面，从你的反应来看，因为这个很正常。
I can tell that you're trying to hold your laughter.
But I am a little bit, you know, he did connect to DC power supply already and wasn't really paying attention, but I would have expected him to prompt to boot and get back 007. That's what I think it would be. And if then say, okay, I'm good to go with the RAM. But he went, whatever happened,
I just
he
saw
went,
.07 come up, so.
Sky, I'm sorry I conned you into taking the
Yeah, so go to a picture of Mark right now. Like, look. Go like this and show Mark.
Yeah.
再让你的相机拍一下，拍一张吧。
You can't see it. Oh, you
Show Mark.
Yeah, there he goes. Yeah, there's.
Very handsome.
And delicious.
Oh, okay.
90号应该差不多。
All right. So, are you looking for 70 milliamps?
90号是不是？90
90 milliamps. Damn it.
We're so close.
一般是70号。
Q's tech service wants to know where'd you get pizza from.
一般是他90号按嘛。
It's most of the time waiting for it to cool down. All right. So, I'm gonna guess that we saw 90 milliamps. I wasn't paying attention.
There was.
I was watching Mark and the pizza. So we're moving on. So I think that's a good thing to recognize, to check, that you can check your CPU function. So remember, we've seen, like these low, like brain dead. CPU's got power, CPU's okay. Why can't the CPU say anything? Because he's missing the SDRAM. So you've got to have that. If SDRAM was there, then what would happen? DC power would do what?
Goes up.
Yeah, it's going to do its dance, right? All right, so it looks like he is prepping the top of the CPU to receive
The RAM.
the RAM.
So it's not like it's not a rule, but if you power up the phone and it shows, let's say, 0.7.9, it's a problem on the RAM.
No.
No, not necessarily.
No, because it could be,
Could be a short
what if
partition
the,
short.
the instructions are, it's all those same things we've been talking about all day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So if you
so
say the
it's
instructions
program
and
around
all the
it.
ones and zeros turn into,
Yeah.
then it's as if you didn't see anything.
So in other words, you have to probe around and find out which line.
But it's always great to do experiments. Like if you're going to practice CPU transfer stuff, take off a RAM, plug it in, see what happens. See if you can start noticing those patterns and saying, hey, is this the same that you guys get, etc. So now that means that CPU has a good chance of not being totally dead. It didn't have any kind of internal short circuit on a power line. So it's gonna work. Let's go look at that guy's password.
What's his name?
Mark, look under Donald Trump. Oh. Mark can't hear. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
It's too focused on the pizza.
Are all the flies dead? I feel like.
Yeah.
I think they are, yeah.
Great.
See.
I think that's the last one right there.
Pizza from Apple.
Even if it doesn't work, it's inspiration for technicians, says technologists. Thanks,
Yes.
Focus. I agree.
That's right.
But we want
we
to
picked the least likely candidate, like the one that's already been to China.
Yeah, that's right. The board that's already been to China. All right, so we've ditched the microscope, and now. Oopsie. Quick report.
Oh.
Same as when installing the CPU. Super low air, just like you were reballing, and down to the temperature for working with leaded solder. So remember when he was taking off the NAND, high, this is, he's about 40 degrees less than when he was doing the NAND, because this is leaded, reball, solder on these chips.
Less temperature.
Yep. What is it customary to do in China when you spend a long time like this on a repair and then it doesn't work? Do you like karate chop your desk? Do you flip your chair? Do you just slide everything off? Break the board in half?
they burn it with fireworks.
他说我们在中国碰到这样的案子，修了这么长的时间，结果没修好，我们要掀桌子吗？
He's like, I don't know, it doesn't happen.
Zero failure rate. Zero failure rate.
Zero failure. No tolerance for failure. I just watch everybody eat ramen.
Especially.
Probably there's a giant bottle of Jack Daniels in the corner of the paper, just like that. And now, you wait. What's it going to be?
这个等它凉了就是变好了吗？
都已经造好了，这个是最后一个。
Do you think it's gonna work?
你觉得好了吗？会有用吗？没用吗
有50%。
50%.
50%.
Half and half.
Sounds pretty good. Way better than it was. Well, you can't really say like, oh, 95%. Oh, shit. He secretly thinks it's way more than 50-50.
Yeah.
But it's not 100. It's
Cautiously
probably,
optimistic.
he thinks it's 85%.
Yeah.
He just can't say it.
To show our humble Chinese.
That's right. Later, after you leave, he's gonna be like, it was 100%.
I totally killed it.
I totally killed it.
他觉得挺好的，觉得我们说50%的是很谦虚。
主要是它这个套件我们没什么把握。
这个那个板吗
CPU， 它有拆过。
You said it's all upside down, what?
The uncertain part is the CPU because it was already repaired by other person.
Yes. Other person who wasn't worth purchasing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look up this ticket, see, because we're either telling this guy, we give up, or
2 years later.
Right.
We gave up.
We will help you write some other songs. All right, let's get him another idea. What would be a good? Anybody got a good idea for a hit?
Well, we need to know his name first.
Inspiration of their hit first.
You may find out.
He's trying it.
Clues about the phone. We want more clues.
We want more clues.
Name of the song.
Oh, the phone.
Oh, it's already ringing.
Yeah, what do you know?
Not now. This is how you say not now in Chinese. Not right now. It's gonna be somebody's like, dude, don't forget to check this thing.
It's somebody from
Dude, you forgot to put the EEPROM back when I saw it blow away. It was a flood.
Mark.
There we are.
Left something for the rest of us.
Alright, so what do you guys think? Look at
Can't
that.
hear you. Alright, so is it connected to
pizza is
DC
dead,
power
man.
supply?
The pizza is dead. It won't escape from you. You know?
What?
100 milliamps.
有可能它的套件是坏的。
Connect to DFU. Oh, see.
CPU。
It's probably the CPU stability.
Sad trombone. Alright, so what we see on DC power supply is 0 before prompt to boot, and then prompt to boot, and it goes to 100 milliamps. So 100 milliamps is, like we just said, it would be a CPU that cannot issue instructions. So if it cannot make all the ones and zeros, to turn on all of the other chips, to put all the other enables, to make the thing come alive and start to boot. So, you know, how did it come to be like that? It can be damage to the CPU can happen from electricity. It can, that would be the most typical case. So if you put a CPU on in such a way that you know, what's the CPU voltage? We talked about this. What's the power voltage for a CPU? About what?
About 1.
About 1, yeah. And why? What was special about those rails?
Very, very thin.
Yeah, right. We got troll, right? So they have very low natural resistance to ground.
Yeah.
So because of that, they're like butter.
Yeah.
So because of that natural low resistance to ground, something that can have that high current consumption with such a tiny push of volt. What happens if you connect 3 volts? That's a freight train just going into this fairy nest and causing electrical damage. So that would be kind of like the most common mechanism of internal blowout of the die of the chip itself. You know, and that's probably what was already up with this board to begin with, because it's already gone. It didn't go to some dude on eBay that writes "thank you." So this went to, you know, competent professionals in China who are friends of iPad Rehab, who would want to give iPad Rehab back working parts.
Yes.
Yeah, so, so we're gonna update this person. Sorry, bro, you got a dead CPU. This is the end of the line.
Who's the person?
Should I tell him who the person is?
Why not?
At least tell
Yes.
Say
Yeah,
yes.
don't.
Exactly, yes.
It still doesn't work.
All right, I'll make you guess, okay? This phone belongs to a celebrity who is a musician who also has a celebrity wife. Any clues?
Justin Timberlake.
He's married?
Yeah.
You didn't
That's
know
what
that?
his wife does? Is she a musician also? Or?
She's not a musician.
Okay.
She's a
Might be
fairly,
Justin
she is a well-known actress.
Might be Justin Timberlake.
Oh.
He fit the description.
All right, next clue, the genre of music is country music.
Then I definitely don't know anything.
Like, oh, I thought it was gonna say
He's going to be sad when he watches this video that you don't know him.
And she's an actress.
She is an actress.
Can we read comments?
Yeah, let's read comments. That's a great idea. Come on, help me out, chat. Let's see, help me out, chat. There we go. It's not Kanye West. It's not Louis Rossman. Way to go, Darius. You're a smart guy.
Darius got it.
Ask Louis Rossman.
No, not that.
Oh.
God bless it.
Is that right, Darius? Keith Urban?
What?
Keith Urban?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's Keith Urban? And who's his wife?
Yeah, and Nicole Kidman, right? Yeah, and I'm just going off the clues I didn't get. Darius.
Nicole
Kidman. Yeah, I'm not that smart.
Nicole Kidman's husband's phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we'll call up Nicole if we had a number, which is trapped on that phone forever, and say, sorry, bro, your husband Keith's phone with. Let's look up what music has Keith Urban put out in the last year. See if it's like some really exciting hits.
It's called Why Can't My iPhone Be Fixed?
Some gossip about Tom Cruise, right?
It was Keith Urban.
Reba, Blake Shelton.
So it's worth the effort.
Definitely worth the effort, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely worth the effort.
You should change the title to Recovering Tea Thermos. It'll go viral.
Yes.
You were looking for marketing. That's your guy.
Is that it? Alright, well, let's see what happens. Let's change the title and just like after the day and see like what happens through the like, whoa,
500,000 views.
Yeah, exactly. Alright. Well, I thought that was fantastic. So well done. Very impressive. Even though you're sitting there going, fuck this piece of shit CPU. Not your fault. Well done. Good job.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
He needs
We're all
massage now.
we're all super impressed. Right. And I don't know about all of that stuff. Whoa, what? Okay. So that is it for our stream. And we are gonna go eat some pizza and probably break that board in half. Maybe even set it on fire. Who knows? All right. So we will see you next time.